Have you ever pondered the true cost of a human life? And what if your mind became your sole currency? In our world, we fear financial poverty and pay for things with gold and paper. But imagine your feet landing in a territory where your money holds no value. A land where wealth is measured by a bizarre metric, where the currency of trade is neither metal nor paper, but something far more precious and concealed. Here, in the land of Zikola, bankruptcy is not merely an insult or deprivation, it is a death sentence. On their greatest day of celebration, the poorest among them is slaughtered, sacrificed for the city's joy after having sold their most valuable possession until nothing remained. In this terrifying landscape, we find our hero, Khalid Hosni, a young man for whom the paths of life in our world had narrowed. Chased by despair after the doors to marrying his beloved were repeatedly slammed in his face, he sought heroism and uniqueness in an ancient, enchanted basement, only to find himself prisoner to a law whose cruelty he had never grasped. Khalid entered a world that stole his money and his family, leaving him with only two choices. Either find his way back through the legendary basement of Fudik, or become the sacrifice of Zikola, or worse yet, return to his world with a ravaged mind from which there is no recovery. Welcome, then, to the land of legends and heroism, the land of sacrifice and impossible love. Welcome to the land of Zikola, where loss means inevitable death. Our tale begins in Egypt, specifically in the late years of the last decade, where the threads of reality intertwine with the whispers of ancient myths. Deep within this land lies a hidden, magical basement, an ancient gateway between our familiar world and an unknown realm where the laws of life are rewritten. Our people know nothing of it save for what is told in fairy tales and forbidden stories. Here, we find Khalid Hosni, 28 years old, a graduate holding a degree that neither nourishes nor avails, burdened by the weight of his modest reality. He sits in his cramped room, overcome by heavy sorrow after his proposal to his beloved, Mona, is rejected for the 8th consecutive time. His eyes study the 8 papers hanging on the wall, each a silent witness to a failed attempt, the reason repeating like a curse: he must be unique. The rejection was not born of financial inability, for Khalid worked and strived to prove himself. But Mona's father, a man living on the glories of an ancient victory in the 73 war, did not want an ordinary son-in-law who might rival his alleged greatness. His obsession was to marry his only daughter to someone unique, a legendary hero befitting his madness and arrogance that defied logic. The father saw Khalid as just another man, possessing no distinction worthy of his daughter. Khalid reached his breaking point. He exploded in anger at the arrogant father, his voice rising in a rare challenge. "If you want a hero for your daughter, tell me how to be a hero in your eyes. I will marry Mona, whether you like it or not." Khalid left, having decided in his heart that he would marry none but Mona and that he must find this impossible uniqueness to satisfy the obsession of that mad father.
Khalid turned to a warm, old memory, a story his grandfather Abdo used to tell him as a child. The tale of the mysterious basement that ran beneath the town. The grandfather and 3 of his companions had attempted to descend into it 50 years ago, greedy for buried treasure, but they returned terrified, thinking they had escaped cursed jinn and demons, while the true, regrettable cause was merely a lack of oxygen in the dark, narrow tunnel. A violent, bitter, internal dialogue raged within Khalid. Should he risk descending to find the treasure and become famous? Or was it sheer folly leading to doom? But the voice of determination drowned out the voices of doubt. If you were a coward, you wouldn't deserve Mona. The feeling of failure and loss was killing him every day. 4 years of commerce studies had ended with him as a porter in a pharmaceutical warehouse. He had to do at least one thing he could be proud of before himself, if no one else. The next morning, Khalid tried to evade his grandfather, claiming he was traveling far away to find himself. But his grandfather stopped him with a piercing gaze, eyes heavy with an ancient secret. I know you will go down to the basement, Khalid. I have known for a long time. Khalid was stunned when his grandfather revealed the buried secret he had long hidden from everyone. His parents had not died in a traffic accident as was told, but had descended into the basement on a short journey from which they never returned, leaving 2-year-old Khalid in his grandfather's care. Before Khalid could absorb the shock of this bitter revelation, the final blow came from his beloved Mona. He met her, finding her sullen and depressed. She confessed that her father had agreed to a doctor who had proposed to her and had beaten her when she tried to refuse in defense of their love. Khalid realized then that it was no longer about heroism or uniqueness. The father simply did not want Khalid, specifically, no matter what he did. Khalid's heart shattered, feeling a double defeat and betrayal. He tore the 8 rejection papers in hysterical anger, realizing his years of love had been wasted. He turned to his grandfather with a final, irrevocable decision. Mona is lost. The job is lost. I must go down to the basement. I need to do one thing I can be proud of. I need to feel heroic to myself. This failure is killing me. At that decisive moment, Haj Mustafa Aslan, the grandfather's friend, known as the madman of the basement, entered. He revealed that what he and the grandfather had descended into was not the true basement, but merely a tunnel leading to it, and that the lamps had extinguished due to lack of oxygen, not jinn. He then handed Khalid an old book with only 10 worn pages remaining.
The book spoke of Furik, a wealthy Mamluk who owned the area and ordered the basement dug as a shelter and treasury. Crucially, the writer described the journey down, warning of the first tunnel's poor ventilation and stating that the true basement began after a 30-meter deep ladder illuminated naturally by the full moon. The book ended with a truncated, puzzling sentence. I thought the real treasure was wealth, but I discovered what is far more precious. I discovered that night, the moon was full. Khalid bade farewell to his grandfather, who silently handed him a photo of his parents with tears in his eyes, and set off for the abandoned house, carrying his bag and Furik's book. He moved the rock with difficulty, opened the iron door, and it slammed shut behind him with terrifying force, leaving him in pitch darkness and frightful isolation. Khalid began his journey into the tunnel, delving deeper until he soon felt a terrible suffocation that paralyzed him. He realized he could neither return nor advance. He collapsed, surrendering to despair and exhaustion, but a faint glimmer of light from afar awakened him. He crawled toward the wooden board blocking the door, and with the strength of a desperate man with nothing to lose, he broke it and fell into the deep wooden ladder where fresh air returned to him. Upon recovering, he shouted with the ecstasy of victory, "Furik's basement, I am here!" He continued his descent to find himself in a wider, more ornate and beautiful tunnel. He took a picture of a large mural depicting Furik, but suddenly the ground shook violently. The basement began to collapse around him with a deafening, terrifying roar. Khalid dashed like a madman, losing his bag in the rush, and found himself at a fork in the road. One path collapsed, as if the basement was forcibly guiding him toward an unknown fate. Khalid ran until he saw a blinding light in the distance. He crawled through a narrow opening in the ground, and no sooner had he exited than the opening collapsed and sealed completely behind him. He found himself in a barren desert with no crops, no water, boundless and devoid of life under a scorching sun. After hours of despair, he was startled by two strange men running away like madmen. Khalid approached them, asking about the place. They answered in a strange, formal Arabic. Certain of their poverty, Khalid tried to help them with some money from his world, but the man took the money and ate it with disdain. Then the men pointed to a charming, beautiful city glittering on the horizon, saying as they fled, "We are escapees from the land of Zikola. We will never return to it." Khalid wondered how two could flee such a paradise, but curiosity, along with hunger and thirst, drove him toward that mysterious city, the land of Zikola. Khalid rushed toward the magnificent city the escapees had pointed to. The path was deceptive. The more he walked, the less ground he seemed to cover, as if treading through a mirage. When he tried to catch a ride, he was met with scorn and mockery. The money he carried from his world, the very reason he sought uniqueness, was nothing but worthless paper in Zikola. A young man named Yamin helped him cling to the back of a cart until they reached the colossal city gates, fortified by towering walls. No sooner had Khalid crossed the threshold than he felt a painful tremor in his head that quickly passed, like a forced, mysterious transformation taking hold. He wandered the city, dazzled by its superior architecture and the elaborate way it was lit by fires at night. He ate at a luxurious restaurant and was not asked to pay a single coin. Instead, he was called rich, confirming to Khalid that this world had a completely different financial system, where transactions relied on mysterious units written above shopfronts. Khalid learned from a young boy about the awaited celebration tomorrow, the day of Zikola, the happiest day in the city, when the poorest person would be slaughtered to become the sacrifice of Zikola. Anxiety seeped into Khalid's heart as he realized the bitter truth. Since his money was worthless, he was effectively the poorest in this cursed city. But the boy reassured him that the sacrifice had already been chosen after the two poorest men, the ones he saw in the desert, had fled. Before Khalid could comprehend it all, he asked the boy what year it was, receiving a shocking answer. "We are in the year 2009. The shock was double and resounding. He was in the same time, but in a place that bore no connection to his village or his world. Khalid awoke to the immense noise of celebrations filling the air. Amidst the crowds, he saw a stunningly beautiful woman tossing flowers with a captivating smile. It was Dr. Asil, Zikola's premier physician. He walked with Yamin to the celebration grounds, where over 50,000 had gathered, awaiting the slaughter. After a terrifying silence fell over the place, the executioner ascended with guards and the sacrifice. A man with a shaved head, looking sick and emaciated. In a horrific moment, the massive sword fell, severing head from body, and shouts of joy and loud music erupted. Khalid trembled at the horror of the sight, wondering in astonishment, how can these monsters live in this age?
Khalid decided to leave immediately. When Yamin asked why, he replied angrily, "How can I not be poor when I own nothing?" It was then that the terrifying truth that would change his life forever was revealed. Yamin explained that the currency here was units of intelligence. Wealth was measured by intellect, not money. The more units one earned, the more vibrant and youthful they became. The more they lost, the paler and sicker they grew, until they became completely destitute. Poverty here was not of money, but of mind and soul. When Khalid asked about leaving, the final crushing blow came. The gate of Zikola had closed and would not open again until 1 year from now, just before the next day of Zikola. Khalid was now a prisoner in this world of madmen, destined not to see his grandfather or Mona for a full year. In his confusion, he was struck by Asil's carriage. She stepped down to check on him. Later, sitting by the lake, Khalid witnessed a child drowning. With skills learned from first aid courses in his world, Khalid saved the child, earning Asil's deep admiration and respect for his intelligence. Khalid confessed to her that he was from another world. She reciprocated with her own secret. She was from a usurped land called Dijana, once a slave who became Zikola's top doctor thanks to a compassionate physician who taught her everything. Khalid decided to find work. Yamen accompanied him to the mountain quarries, where everyone worked diligently for 7 units of intelligence a day. The work was grueling, and everyone guarded their units for fear of bankruptcy, for the law here was harsh and merciless. Work or slowly perish. At the library, hope, which had nearly extinguished, was rekindled. Khalid learned that a man who looked exactly like him and spoke his strange dialect, likely his father, had bought the most expensive book in Zikola, one about Forik's basement, and then vanished. The fire of hope flared in Khalid's heart. Were his parents still alive in this world? Khalid met Asil and told her his entire secret about Egypt, their civilization, and the mysterious basement. He then announced his decision to find the book at any cost. But Yamen warned him sternly and violently, "If you spend your wealth, your intelligence units on this search, and leave Zikola, you will return to your country afflicted with incurable stupidity, and you will remain at that level of intelligence forever." Khalid felt utter despair. It was either the book or protection from the stupidity that threatened his life. Then Asil came to him with a noble offer of salvation. She would make him her medical assistant, and during her times working with women where he wasn't allowed, she would lend him one of her horses to search for the book in other regions. Khalid agreed with overwhelming joy, writing of Asil that she was the nymph he found in Zikola and his life's new hope. Khalid set off with Asil to the central region, the governor's palace. There, Asil brought him happy news that carried relief. The governor's wife was pregnant. If she bore a son, the day of Zikola would be held 7 days after his birth, meaning the gate would open a day before that, just 6 months from now. Khalid was now in a race against time, 6 months to find the book. Otherwise, his fate would be either slaughter or returning with incurable stupidity to his world, fulfilling Mona's father's prophecy in a way no one had expected. Khalid and Asil's work routine continued. While heading to the southern region, the agricultural area, Asil revealed more to Khalid about Zikola's complex financial system. She explained that poverty here was relative, measured by acquired intelligence units, and that paleness of face was a distinct sign of depleted mental wealth. She reassured him that he had enough, about 800 units, provided he didn't touch his principal wealth and worked hard to grow it. In one of the houses, Khalid was forced, in Asil's absence, to intervene and save a child sick with a high fever. Acting with instinctive and scientific skill, imitating a doctor he had seen before, Khalid lowered the child's temperature with amazing speed. He refused to take payment for saving a human life, to which Asil jokingly warned him, "You are smart, Khalid, but beware. When you think, you consume your wealth and intelligence. Good deeds here are not done without a price." Khalid returned disappointed from his search in the vast southern region, but a glimmer of hope lit his dark path. An old woman whose son Khalid had saved, told him she had met someone exactly like him in the northern region 20 years ago, accompanied by his strange wife. That man had possessed Khalid's kindness and helped him, just as he had done today. Khalid's resolve was sharpened, but Asil blocked his path. She apologized, clinging to a promise she had made to herself and her late doctor, never to go to that land of the lazy, the northern region, as it was a despised place beneath her. Khalid did not want her to break her promise, so he accepted her apology and decided to set off alone. Khalid rented a horse from his friend Yamen for a hefty price, 50 units of intelligence, a severe blow to his wealth. Yamen warned him about the northern region, describing it as containing a class that inherited immense wealth of intelligence, or a class that relied on crime and thuggery to amass units, unjustly imposing daily tributes on others. Khalid reached the northern region to find it a swamp of corruption and endless raucous nightlife. He tried to ask about the strange man, but no one cared. After paying a tribute to protect his horse, he met a courtesan and reproached her for her actions. The girl shouted back angrily, "I am better off than the one who killed his father in the end for a book." Khalid was stunned. Her words
goods carried terrifying, heartbreaking evidence. He paid her 20 units and she guided him to the killer's house.
Khalid knocked on the door, and a young man in his 20s, resembling him and sharing his exact voice, answered. This young man was none other than Hilal, his half-brother. After some hesitation, Hilal let him in, and Khalid began questioning him with an eager, broken heart. Hilal confessed to killing his father, Hosni Abdel Kawi, because he had left him nothing, having spent his intelligence on a book he was obsessed with, leaving Hilal only abject poverty. Khalid burst into tears, confirming to his brother that the murdered man was their father, and that Hilal had committed a heinous crime because the greed of Zikola ran in his blood and heart. Khalid begged his brother to give him the book, his only hope of returning home. Hilal laughed mockingly and demanded 400 intelligence units for it. Khalid reluctantly agreed on the condition that he be given 2 months to raise the amount, to which Hilal consented. Khalid returned to the lake, where Yaman and Asil were waiting anxiously. After telling them everything, Khalid decided to follow a strict and risky plan. He would eat only bread, saving 6 units daily to amass 360 units in 2 months, then add 40 units from his reserves. As for replenishing the wasted reserves, his bold plan was to incite a social revolution against the thuggery. Khalid went to the restaurant and proposed the owner lower the price of chicken in exchange for guaranteeing it all sold. He then stood among the workers and spoke with angry passion. Why do we pay 2 units for protection? Why do we eat dry bread to pay people who feed off our toil? We will pay no one from today on. The workers responded to his call, and Yaman and Asil joined him strongly. The next day, the workers violently confronted the thugs in the quarries, defeating them and driving them out, returning to their work with new vitality. Khalid succeeded in raising the price of the book, but lost an additional 50 units, renting the horse again. He returned to his brother, only to find the price had risen to 500 units. He had no choice but to pay, sacrificing a large portion of his reserves. Khalid left his brother with the book in his hands, filled with a painful sense of shame toward Hilal. Khalid opened the book and began to read eagerly. It revealed that the original inhabitants of Zikola were actually descendants of adventurers who had been trapped inside Furik's basement after its construction and were forced to escape through the strange exit in the desert. They had forgotten their origins, save for their calendar and Arabic language. Then came the decisive sentence, the riddle of return, written by his father. Whoever comes to this land and wishes to return to his home must enter Zikola, be like the sun, and carve into the rock. Then he will find the other door of the basement before the head. The book ended, leaving Khalid facing an obscure riddle with a deadline of only 3 months before the day of Zikola, and a fate that might be slaughter or returning with stupidity to his world, fulfilling Mona
Mona's father's prophecy in an unexpected way.
Khalid stood baffled before the book's final riddle: how to be like the sun, how to carve into the rock, to find the basement door before the head. All paths seemed blocked, and wine had a devastating effect on the intelligence of Zicolians. Having consumed part of his wealth, Khalid found no escape from its influence. He surrendered to drink, feeling his hope evaporate, and collapsed, laughing, mocking himself and the stupidity of the riddle. Khalid woke up regretful and returned to his friends, showing signs of paleness and lost vitality, proof of his eroding mental wealth. The three tried to solve the riddle until Khalid, aided by Yaman's mention of rocks in the western region, realized it pointed to the sun's direction, from the east where he entered to the west where he must return, and that carving into the rock meant attempting to breach the wall of Zicola itself. The three set off for the western region. At the height of their search, a seal ran up breathless, confirming she had found the solution. The head was not a statue, but the vertex of the right angle where the walls met. They reached the spot and found Furik's drawing upon it, proof that this was the way back. But their joy was incomplete. The door, according to the riddle, lay outside the wall. Worse, scratching or carving the wall was a crime punishable by death. Here, their clever friend Ayad stepped in with a bold solution: buy an abandoned house near the weakest point in the wall's corner, 200 units, and hire workers to dig a secret tunnel from the house to the wall, 300 units, completing the task in just 20 days without anyone noticing. The price was exorbitant, 500 intelligence units at once, while Khalid's reserves barely exceeded 650. Feeling he stood on the edge of an abyss, Khalid decided to take the risk. He would buy the tunnel, but wouldn't leave immediately. He would stay in Zicola until the final day to replenish his lost intelligence. In a moment of both weakness and strength, he asked Yaman to take responsibility for making decisions on his behalf, fearing his diminishing intelligence would lead to mistakes. He told him honestly, "I love Asil, and she loves me, and I fear becoming stupid and having her turn away from me." Despite Asil's pleas to delay the payment, Khalid was determined. The agreement was signed. No sooner had Khalid paid the 200 units for the house than he felt intense pain, and his face grew paler. But the knockout blow came with paying the 300 units to the workers. Khalid collapsed to the ground in a seizure, convulsing from the loss of most of his wealth. Only about 100 units of intelligence remained in his reserves. Khalid returned to life, but he was no longer the same. He became like a small child, full of questions, repeating the same one over and over, leaving Yaman to care for him with patience and guidance. Everyone worked to help Khalid reach his goal. As the tunnel neared completion, Khalid decided to confess his love to Asil through the notes he had been writing. Yaman gave the papers to Asil. She began reading them with eagerness and joy until she reached the part where Khalid spoke of his old love for Mona, reading an incomplete, cruel sentence. "What I know is that I have loved no one but Mona all my life." A page fell from her hands, and Asil returned to her room, heart torn with grief, believing his love for her was merely sympathy. Meanwhile, as Khalid roamed the city, happy about the tunnel nearing completion, soldiers surrounded and seized him. The reason: the governor's wife had given birth to a son, meaning the day of Zekola would fall in just 7 days, not 2 months as expected. Khalid was thrown into the poor quarters, where he met Jawad, a man who had lost his wealth on his beloved's dowry, a story echoing Khalid's own with Mona. But Jawad was calm, proud of his homeland, resigned to his fate, believing his beloved would be proud of him as a sacrifice. At the palace, Yamin learned of Khalid's arrest and confronted Asil about her coldness. She tried to evade him, thinking Khalid didn't love her. It was then that Yamin gave her the missing page he had found, containing the rest of the phrase, "Until I found Asil, for whom my love grows every day. As for me, I feel a love for her I have never felt before." Asil read the words and broke down weeping, realizing the gravity of the misunderstanding, and found the motivation for one last attempt to save her beloved. Now, Khalid is a captive, threatened with slaughter in 7 days, his intelligence diminutive. The tunnel, however, is nearly finished. The 7 decisive days began. The poor of the western region were presented to the doctors to determine the poorest among them, Khalid and Jawad included. At the end of the day, both were chosen to be sent to the central region with the more fortunate poor, meaning one of them would be the sacrifice of Zekola. The 2 friends exchanged parting wishes. Jawad asked Khalid to tell his beloved he loved her, and Khalid asked Jawad to give Yamin and Asil moving messages, especially to tell Asil that she was truly more beautiful than her star. Khalid arrived at the platform in the eastern region, awaiting his fate, while Asil waited anxiously at the governor's palace. She decided she would wrong no one, but she could not let Khalid be slaughtered. When she examined the poor, she deliberately disqualified them one by one until 4 remained, Khalid among them. At the crucial moment, she pointed to Jawad, saving him, and kept Khalid and 2 others as the poorest, leaving their fate to the game of Zekola, which determines the sacrifice. Khalid went to make his statue, then stood in the celebration square as the wooden disc spun with arrows. He chose his protection spots, but his lost intelligence betrayed him. 3 consecutive arrows struck him in the right thigh, and the crowd shouted that he was the sacrifice of Zekola. Asil left the platform, blaming herself for what happened, certain she was the cause of his doom. Khalid was taken to the poor man's house. That night, his head and beard were completely shaved in preparation for the slaughter. At dawn on the day of sacrifice, Asil sneaked into his room. She looked at him, seeing the signs of weak intelligence and exhaustion, yet she could not hide her love. When Khalid weakly asked her what she would do, she replied, "I won't let you die here. You must multiply that love of yours many times over to know how much I love you." Khalid realized she had nothing to give him to save him, but Asil surprised him. "I just want you to kiss me." She then placed a tender kiss between his eyes, bade him farewell, and left. That kiss was the price of his salvation.
At sunrise, on the day of slaughter, as Khaled's cart moved towards the platform, Asil was not in it, but another girl. At the moment of execution, an unexpected surprise occurred. The boy Khaled had saved from drowning, the woman whose son he had saved, Yaman, and other workers he had helped, all stood up and shouted, "If you are going to slaughter those who are not poor, then slaughter us with him." In the ensuing chaos, another doctor was summoned to examine Khaled. By a miracle, and through careful examination, the doctor discovered that Khaled possessed wealth surpassing many in Zikula. Unknown to him, Khaled had managed to regain a large portion of his lost intelligence units through the selfless good deeds he had done, the sincere love he had gained, and most importantly, that final kiss, which had been a divine transfer of intelligence units from Asil. The governor, his face a mask of fury, declared Asil a traitor to Zikola, stripping her of her title. Khaled was released, the story concluding without a sacrifice for the first time. He went searching for Asil, his heart heavy with unspoken questions, until a young girl brought him a message from her, hanging on a tree by the lake. Khaled read the moving farewell letter. Asil confessed she had loved him from the first moment, and that she had betrayed her promise to herself by not wanting him to leave. Yet she could not bear to see him sacrificed. She had sacrificed everything, and that kiss was the price she paid from her own intelligence units so he could return as smart as he was. The letter ended with her final news. She was returning to her homeland, Dejana, realizing she could not live in his world, and she would find no stronger reason to leave Zikola than saving him. Khaled rushed to the gate, but it had already closed. The guard seized him, but Yaman freed him, telling him that Asil had sacrificed everything and that he must now fulfill her wish for him to be happy. Yaman gave him a horse, having recovered the rent money from the landlord, assuring him their friendship was not measured in units. Khaled set off westward, returning through the tunnel he had prepared. Khaled walked through the tunnel, then into the basement, following the path of the collapse that had led him earlier, until he reached the final tunnel. He crossed it with great speed, climbed the ladder, and moved the iron door with difficulty, leaping out to find himself in his own home. He embraced his grandfather, telling him and Hajj Mustafa of his adventure, asking them to keep it a secret. His grandfather reassured him that Mona had resisted her father and sworn to marry no one but him. Indeed, after some time, Khaled went to propose to her, and her father finally agreed. Khaled and Mona were married. On their wedding night, Khaled looked up at the sky and found Asil's star shining alone. He whispered to himself, "Asil." Mona asked him where they would spend their honeymoon. Khaled smiled, drew close to her, and whispered, "I have a place like no other, a place where money is not used for trade." And so Khaled returned from the land of Zikola, having triumphed over fate. but the curse of love and sacrifice still pursues him, marking the start of his new journey in the second part. This story is a summary of the novel Ard Zekula by the Egyptian writer Amr Abdul Hamid. What did you think, friends? If you enjoyed it, let us know, and we can bring you the rest of the parts. Don't forget to like and subscribe too.